The syrup hadn't even hit the pancakes when the sirens wailed. 3 officers burst into the quiet diner, their eyes burning with suspicion. They weren't looking for a criminal. They were looking at Amara, a 15-year-old black girl, and her only crime was laughing too loud. "Get your hands where I can see them." Her father stood slowly, eyes locked, steady. "Careful," the officer whispered, but Marcus Taylor didn't blink, because the man they were threatening was a Navy SEAL trained to handle war zones. And this time, the battlefield was breakfast. It started with laughter, not the kind that shakes the walls or turns heads, just the quiet, sweet kind that lives in the back of a father's mind forever. Amara just said something silly, something about the shape of her pancakes looking like a sad turtle. Mother, Kayla, rolled her eyes. Marcus laughed anyway, not because it was funny, but because it was her, his daughter, smiling, laughing, safe. For the first time in months, they'd driven through the night, just the 3 of them, no news, alerts, no military calls, no constant fear of being misunderstood or mistaken. Marcus had just retired from the Navy SEALs after 2 decades of service. That morning, all he wanted was a warm breakfast, a quiet booth, and peace. But peace has a funny way of slipping through fingers that fought for it. He noticed it the moment they stepped into the diner. The smiles from the waitress were tight. Glances from the other tables lingered a little too long. One man folded his newspaper and whispered something to his wife. A boy with a straw-colored buzz cut openly stared, still. Marcus kept smiling. Kayla too, though hers wavered a little. Mara gripped her hoodie sleeves tightly, like she'd felt this kind of quiet before. The kind of quiet that hides teeth. They sat in the back booth. Window seat. Sun pouring in. Mara leaned on her elbows, smiling at the syrup bottle like it was the only thing in the world worth trusting. Then came the first sign. Asterisk, a white couple walked in after them. Much later. They got menus before the Taylors did. Got their coffee. Topped up. Got a free slice of pie for being regulars. Marcus didn't say anything. He'd learned long ago. Words can become weapons when they come from the wrong mouth in the wrong room. He just nodded politely, even when the waitress skipped their booth a 3rd time. Even when Amara whispered, "Daddy, are we invisible?" He chuckled gently, squeezing her hand. No, just patient. Finally, the waitress came over, barely looking at them, took their order with the energy of someone signing divorce papers, left without a smile. But Marcus didn't let the moment sour. He leaned toward Amara, lowering his voice. "So, what's the turtle's name?" She grinned again. "Shelvester." They all laughed. That's when the sirens hit. The red flashes. Across the window. Then doors slammed outside. 3 officers entered. Not with hesitation, but with intent. Boots heavy. Eyes sweeping the room like a SWAT scan. Tallest one, pale and square-jawed, locked eyes with Marcus. They were heading toward him. Kayla stiffened. Amara stopped chewing. Marcus remained calm. "Sir," the officer barked. Hand on his hip. "We got a report of harassment. You need. Step outside. Now." The entire diner paused. Forks hovered mid-air. The waitress disappeared behind the counter. Someone pulled out a phone. A woman muttered. They always cause trouble. Marcus stood up slowly, measured, like he was still in uniform. He looked at the officer, not flinching. What exactly was reported? A minor being aggressive towards staff, yelling, refusing to comply. His eyes flicked to Amara. Her mouth parted. "I didn't. I just said the eggs were cold." Kayla stood now too. "We didn't raise our voices. We've barely been served." The officer stepped forward. "Let's not make this worse." Another officer, younger, anxious, hovered behind him. Hand twitching near his taser, Marcus exhaled, slowly reached for his wallet. The taller cop barked, "Hands up." Marcus froze, and then, in a voice so calm it silenced even the ceiling fan, he said, "I am not your threat." He pulled out his Navy SEAL ID, the medals, the years, the blood, right there on a laminated card. The officer stared at it, jaw clenched, pulse ticking in his temple. Behind him, a customer, the same man who had whispered to his wife, piped up. I saw her yell at the waitress. The girl. She was disrespectful. Kayla Spahn. That's a lie. The man shrugged. You people always think you can act however you want. Marcus turned to him, eyes steady. What people? He already knew the answer. Astros, the officer, reached for his radio. We'll need backup. And just like that, the room tilted. People took sides with their silence. Amara started shaking. Daddy, I'm scared. Marcus stepped between her. The officers. You want me? I'll go. But she stays right here. Kayla's hand found his. Her eyes brimmed with tears, but her spine didn't bend. We're not going anywhere. It was a standoff now, and no one in that diner expected what happened next. The bell above the door jingled. A frail, older man stepped in. Grey beard. Veteran. Cap. Tired eyes. He looked around, confused, until he saw Marcus. Then he froze. Marcus Taylor. Everyone turned. The officer raised an eyebrow. You know him? The old man's voice cracked. I owe him my life. Silence, thick, real. He stepped forward, hands trembling. This man carried me out of Helmand Province with a bullet in his back. Saved half our unit. Bled for this flag. Bled. He looked the officers in the eye. And you're treating him like this? Younger cop lowered his hand from his taser. The taller one didn't move. Asterisk, but the room had already changed. The waitress peeked out, tears in her eyes. The same people who whispered now looked down. And Amara, she stood taller. Because now, he saw him, not just as a black man in a hoodie, but as who he really was. The taller cop's lips twisted. Like the truth tasted sour. He glanced at the old man, then back at Marcus. That true? Marcus didn't answer. He didn't need to. The man's voice trembled again. I watched him save people who called him worse names than you just thought. He carried a sniper's gear on his back while dragging my broken leg across a field of landmines. And you're about to throw handcuffs on him for ordering breakfast with his kid? Cop's jaw clenched. He looked down at the Navy ID again. The silence was blistering. Marcus finally spoke, quiet, controlled, deadly clear. This is why I kept my uniform on longer than I should have. Because I knew, the second I took it, I'd be seen like this again. Just a problem in a booth. Kayla was crying now, silently, hands on Amara's shoulders and Amara. She wasn't crying. Not yet, but something inside her face shifted. Not fear, not confusion, shame. That's what hit Marcus the hardest. Not the way the waitress wouldn't meet his eyes. Not the silence of the diners. Not the gun too close to his daughter's heartbeat. But that look. Asterisk, the look of a child wondering if she had done something wrong. Just by being there. He stepped back, slowly, putting his hand on her shoulder. His voice softened. You don't ever apologize for breathing, Amara. You hear me? She nodded. Barely. A tear slipped down her cheek. Behind them, the older vet was furious now. I've lived in this town 30 years. I served. I buried friends. I marched for civil rights. And this is still happening, still. He turned to the officer again. Put that radio away. Don't need backup. You need to back up. The tension broke like glass. The younger cop looked at his partner. Whispered, let's go, man. They stood still another beat. Then turned. No apology. No accountability. Just the sound of boots. A tile, and the low creak of the door closing behind them. A long silence followed, until the owner exhaled, reached into his pocket, and handed Marcus a weathered coin, scratched but polished. A challenge coin, he said. And Cobble, you gave it to me when I thought I wouldn't make it. I've carried it every day since. Marcus blinked. He had no words for that. The owner turned to the waitress. Get them everything. On me, and apologize. She nodded, choking back guilt. And then Amara spoke. Her voice was small, steady. Is this what you meant, Daddy, when you said it's different for us? Marcus crouched to her level. It shouldn't be. But yeah, Baby girl, this is why I taught you how to speak up and how to stand tall. This is why I don't. You walk home alone. This is why I say be careful more times than you'll ever know." Her lip quivered. Even when we're not doing anything wrong, he nodded, especially then. He reached out and hugged him, tight, fierce, like she understood more now than she ever had before. And it broke something in him, but also built something new, because she would remember this moment. Not just the fear, not just the shame, but truth that her father wasn't just a man. He was a warrior, a protector. These were cleaner, government grade. No tinted bling, no flex, just purpose. A tall black woman stepped out of the lead car. High and tight haircut, badge clipped to her belt. She walked like she was always 1 second away from snapping someone's wrist. "Commander Reed," she said, offering a hand. Marcus shook it. "I read the file," she said. "Picked the wrong damn family." And with that, the wheels of justice started to grind, not in the broken way they usually did, but in the way only insiders knew how to move them. Officers suspended, leaked emails exposed, confidential. Video footage found. Turns out, the officer who started it all had a pattern of targeted stops. Planes buried, files altered. The diner manager tried to fire Kayla quietly, but was met with nationwide protests and a boycott organized by black veterans and military spouses. When the police union tried to sue Marcus for defamation, the footage of the fire alarm and the threats were presented in open court, and the case collapsed. In less than a month, everything changed. The story broke fast for the town to contain. One leaked security video from the diner. Marcus standing calm while 3 officers towered over him was picked up by a veteran-run blog, then a military TikToker. Shared a stitch, then the media vultures came circling, but they weren't expecting what they found. This wasn't another shouting match on a cell phone. This wasn't a man yelling, "Don't touch my kid," while being dragged off in cuffs. This was precision. Come, a Navy SEAL in dad mode. And a country ate it up. Father protects daughter from racist cops. Turns out he's a SEAL. It trended. In less than 6 hours, Marcus didn't want to speak, but when Anderson Gray, the Emmy-winning black news anchor who'd exposed military abuse scandals, personally flew in and knocked on the family's door, he listened. The interview was live. The lights were soft, air still. Kayla sat to his left, Amara curled between them, nervously clutching her dad's pinky. Anderson adjusted his tie, leaned forward. "You didn't fight back. You didn't raise your voice. You didn't shout when they threatened. Daughter." "Why?" Marcus inhaled slowly. "I was trained to respond to threats," he said, "not fear them." "Surely, it was terrifying. You learn when you're deployed that anger gets people killed, especially the people you're trying to protect." So I stood still. I measured. I waited, because I wasn't going to let them bait me into being the man they wanted the world to see. Long pause. Kayla placed her hand over his. "Besides," Marcus added, glancing down at Amara, "she was watching, and she deserves better than rage. She deserves a shield." The clip went viral, not because it was loud, but because it was devastatingly quiet, controlled. The silence of a man who had walked through hell and learned to bring others back with him. 2 days later, Amara returned to school. This time, it wasn't in silence. A line of veterans stood at the front gate. Black, white, Latino, Asian in uniform and out. Some in wheelchairs. Some in dress blues. Some with medals pinned to their chests and arms folded like marble statues. One held a sign. "Hurt one of us, answer to all of us." The principal came outside. Clearly overwhelmed, the police liaison officer was nowhere to be seen. Reporters, Covered across the street, cameras held high. Amara walked through the front gate alone, but the path had already been cleared. Kids watched in silence. A few whispered then. From the back of the crowd, a soft voice piped up, "You okay?" It was Jamal, the quiet kid from science class, whose hoodie always covered half his face. Amara nodded. He gave a tiny fist bump that was enough later that week. Marcus was asked to speak at a town hall, one hastily arranged after National. Pressure forced the mayor to address recent concerns. The hall was packed. Media, officials, police reps, families, angry faces, hopeful ones, tense silence. Marcus stood at the podium, the spotlight warm on his skin. He didn't prepare notes, didn't wear a suit, just jeans, a clean shirt, and those same steel-set eyes that had once stared down Taliban fighters in the core angle. "Ali, I was taught how to clear buildings, disarm bombs, and rescue hostages," he said slowly. "No one taught me how to protect my child from the people we were told to trust." A ripple moved through the room. "I didn't come here to burn anything down. I came here to tell the truth. And the truth is, you've built a system that sees little black girls as threats before it sees them as children." Kayla watched from the third row, tears in her eyes. "You see me now because I wore a uniform, because I've got medals in a box and scars on my back. But there are fathers who don't have that, and they still deserve dignity. They still deserve safety." He paused. Dignity shouldn't be earned in war. It should be automatic in peace. The room stood still. Then, one by one, people stood. Some clapped. Others just nodded. But the silence broke, and the mayor knew this wasn't going away. It took 3 more weeks. 3 weeks of relentless pressure. 3 weeks. Exposure. Of veterans speaking out. Senators tweeting. Of celebrities posting tributes. Of parents picketing outside the precinct. Eventually, the officer who initiated the incident was fired. The police chief resigned. The diner shut down under protest and was reopened under new management, this time hiring a staff that actually reflected the community it served. But Marcus didn't celebrate. He watched it all from a quiet distance, because for him, victory never looked like confetti. It looked like Amara walking home without fear. It looked like Kayla laughing again at the breakfast table. It looked like a future without the need for battle plans. Late one night, the house was quiet again. The storm had passed. Outside, the wind rustled the trees. A soft breeze slipped through the screen door. Marcus stood alone on the porch, coffee in hand, watching the stars. Kayla came up behind him, arms wrapping around his waist. "You did it." She whispered, "We did." "Think it's over?" He paused. Double quotes, "No, but I think we're safe for now." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "Thank you for being you." He turned and kissed her forehead. "Thank you for never asking me to be anything else inside." Mara slept with the windows open and her nightlight glowing warm beside her. No sirens. No shadows. Just peace. And for the first time in what felt like forever, they let themselves believe it might last. The wind was sharp that night, scraping dust across the Kandahar airfield. Marcus crouched behind a blown-out mud wall, heart steady, breath slow. He could hear the voices ahead, muffled, foreign. Then came the crackle in his earpiece, red echo in motion, so loud, and they moved. For shadows darting between ruin and ruin, Marcus leading the way. NVG lenses casting everything in ghost green. He'd trained for this: neutralize, secure, extract, asterisk. But what no one trained you for was the baby in the corner, wrapped in a blue blanket, eyes wide, watching as the room exploded in light and sound and force. Marcus froze, didn't fire, just dropped to one knee. his weapon low, a small motion that shifted everything. The child's mother raised hands. No one died that night, because one man remembered he was human. Even when the mission screamed otherwise. It was a quiet Tuesday when the knock came. Marcus opened the front door and found a middle-aged white woman standing nervously, holding a folder to her chest. I'm Jennifer Ward, she said, voice trembling. I'm the mother of Officer Tyler Ward, the one from the diner. Taylor stiffened from the hallway. Marcus didn't blink. Why are you here? I'm not here to beg, Jennifer said quickly. He was wrong. He's been wrong. I tried to raise him better. Marcus watched her hands tremble. I saw your speech and the video, and I needed to say thank you, because if my son had pulled that stunt on someone less disciplined than you, she swallowed. There would have been blood, silence. Then Marcus opened the door a little. Ada, come in. Jennifer sat with them for 20 minutes. She cried, told stories, apologized again and again. Kayla stayed quiet. At the end, Jennifer left a sealed envelope on the coffee table. His resignation letter, she said. He asked me to deliver it. He couldn't face you. Marcus never opened it. Just nodded once, closed the door behind her. Amara didn't want to speak, but her science teacher, the only black staff member in the entire district, asked her to. So she stood at the podium, backpack still on, hair braided neatly by Kayla the night before. The board members looked down at her with tired eyes. My name is Amara Johnson, she began, voice small but firm. I'm in 6th grade. I like science and I want to be an astronaut. Few chuckles from the audience. But last month when a police officer came into our school, he didn't see an astronaut. He saw a problem. He saw threat. She glanced down at her paper, then folded it shut. I don't want to be brave every day. I want to feel normal. Silence. I need to make a call, he said. An hour later, a car pulled up outside. Not a reporter. Not a cop. A man in a grey suit stepped out, holding a leather folder and a subtle smirk. He introduced himself as Agent Palmer. Department of Homeland Security, he said smoothly. Been monitoring your case. Marcus narrowed his eyes. Since when? The man shrugged. Let's just say, certain stories hit certain desks. He leaned forward. You're becoming a symbol, Mr. Taylor. And symbols are powerful, can help you. But you need to be careful who you align with. Marcus folded his arms. Why? Palmer smiled faintly. Because not everyone who wants to help you actually wants you to win. Agent Palmer's offer came dressed in politeness. We can protect your family. We can make sure your daughter never sees another threat again. But the pause that followed, it said everything. Marcus leaned back slowly. In return, Palmer smiled. That's slick. Practice kind of smile you only see in people who've signed too many NDA letters. Keep the story quiet. Let the public cool off. We'll investigate internally, release a summary report, you walk. Way clean. No lawsuits. No press. Marcus laughed, low and sharp. You want me to be quiet? For safety? Palmer didn't answer. Didn't have to. Because safety in their language meant silence. That night, Marcus told Kayla everything. She didn't cry. She didn't flinch. She just stood at the kitchen sink again, staring into the drain. They don't want to fix it, she whispered. They just want it to go away. Amara walked in halfway through the conversation. What if it does go away? She asked, voice small. Would that be better? Marcus turned to her. Better for who? Amara blinked. For us. If people stop looking. If I can just be normal again. Kayla walked over and pulled her into a hug. You will never Normal, baby, she said softly. You're exceptional, and that's why they're scared of you. The next morning, Kayla's instincts kicked in. She'd worked admin for years, learned how to trace names, contracts, whispers. She knew where to look when people wanted things buried. So she started digging. And what she found made her stomach turn. The diner owner, the war buddy who'd spoken up for Marcus, wasn't just a business owner. He was a founding member. The local police union's political fundraising committee. Same committee that paid for 3 of the officers' campaigns. Same committee that had donated surveillance equipment to the diner. And a cherry on top, private security contract linking the diner's supplier to Agent Palmer's department. It wasn't a coincidence. It was a circle. Amara's school was holding a unity assembly. Post-incident PR. Let's move forward together. But during assembly, a group of students came out wearing paper badges and toy guns, mocking the video. They mimed pulling her out of her chair. Some shouted, "Get your hands up." Amara froze. Couldn't move, couldn't breathe. A teacher finally pulled the kids away. The damage was done. Kayla rushed into the nurse's office to find her daughter in the corner, hyperventilating. I couldn't scream," Amara gasped. It was like they were all cops. Kayla held her, sobbing silently, kissing her forehead again and again. "You are not what they say," she whispered. "You are not what they say." That night, Marcus didn't sleep. He sat in the garage, staring at an old footlocker he hadn't opened in years. His uniform, his medals, his discharge papers, and something else. His journal, every name, every mission, every betrayal, every scar. He flipped through it, hand trembling. He thought of his daughter choking on her breath in a school hallway. He thought of his wife digging through records because no one else would. He thought of Agent Palmer's smirk and the camera flash outside their home. He was seconds from snapping, until he heard footsteps. Boots. Heavy ones. He turned, and there he was, Jackson Ruiz, former SEAL. 5 tours, limp from shrapnel, but his eyes were sharp. He didn't say hello. Just walked in, dropped a duffel on the workbench and said, "Word is, they're trying to bury you. Quietly, legally. If you push any harder, they won't just smear you, they'll erase you." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "How do you know?" Jackson looked at him. "Hard, because I pushed once, after Fallujah. Spoke up about something I wasn't supposed to. 2 weeks later, my benefits got lost. My wife's credit tanked. We had a car following us home from church for 3 months." He leaned in closer. "This ain't about breakfast anymore, brother. This is about control. And the moment you decided not to bend, they started building your fall." Marcus looked down at the locker, then at Jackson. "So what do I do?" Jackson's voice was steady. "You don't fall." Morning came like a threat. Grey skies hung low over the rooftops of their small suburban neighborhood, and thunder rolled in the distance, not the sharp kind that cracks the heavens open, but the low, growling kind that sits in your gut. Marcus stood at the kitchen sink, gripping the edge of the counter like he was bracing for impact, his knuckles pale, his jaw locked, his mind somewhere deep to reach. Behind him, Kayla moved slowly, measured. The tension in her limbs gave her away, even as she tried to keep her voice steady. "You haven't slept." "I'll sleep when I know we're safe, Marcus." He turned slightly. His eyes weren't angry, they were strategic, calculating, like a man who had already war-gamed every possible outcome, and still wasn't convinced they'd make it out clean. The pie incident, the viral video, the whisper campaign, threats, the silence from city officials, the police union circling them like sharks. The sudden car that had been parked to houses down for 3 nights straight. It was no longer just about one diner. This had become a full-scale intimidation effort, a campaign, a war of silence and shadow. Kayla reached out, brushing her fingers. Along his forearm, she spoke gently, as if she knew he was holding back the storm. "We're not alone in this." He nodded, just barely. "I know." But he also knew that most people who said they'd stand with you disappeared when the first shots were fired. Motion, he moved to the back window. The rain had started falling. That same black SUV sat across the street. Engine off, windows tinted. No lights. He turned away from the window. "You ready?" he asked. Kayla nodded. Amara's backpack was zipped and leaning against the door. "She doesn't have to go in today." "Asterisk she wants to," Kayla said. She said it's her protest. Let out a breath, the kind of breath that carried too much weight for lungs alone to bear. The school hallway was louder than usual, but the noise wasn't joy. It was tension. It was whispers. It was cold shoulders and sideways glances. Amara walked down the center like a target. Backpack on, shoulders square. Chin up, Marcus walked beside her. Every step like a metronome, measured and calm, but his eyes scanned everything. Doors, exits, hands in pockets. His SEAL instincts weren't just alert, they were alive, a kid near. Lockers muttered something under his breath. Marcus stopped, just long enough to turn his head. The kid froze. His friend elbowed him, and they both disappeared. Kayla caught up behind them, waving toward the front office. "I'm checking in. I'll meet you after class." Amara reached up and squeezed Marcus's hand. "You don't have to walk me all the way, Daddy." "I know, but you will anyway." He looked down at her, managed the smallest smile. "You're damn right I will." 3 hours later, it started. First, a call from a blocked number. No voice, just static. Then another dot, then a text. "We know where she learns. You should have kept quiet." Then came the fire alarm. But this wasn't a drill. Marcus, already parked in the lot, saw the smoke before the alarm blared. Before the sirens, before the chaos, the rear of the school was on fire. He was out of the car into seconds, boots pounding pavement, arms pumping, his jacket flaring behind him. He cut around the backside. Students were pouring out through side. Halls, teachers yelling, organizing, coughing. But Amara's classroom was near the east wing, closest to the smoke. He didn't wait. He charged inside, past the crowd, through the side door, up the hallway where no one else dared run. "Amara!" he shouted, smoke stinging his throat. "Amara!" A voice small, high-pitched, cut through the chaos. "Daddy!" She was crouched behind a stack of desks, her face buried in her sleeve. Another girl was sobbing beside her. Marcus didn't. Slow. He lifted both girls, one in each arm, and turned. The hallway behind him was already choking with smoke. Flames weren't far. He sprinted down the adjacent corridor and kicked open the emergency door with one brutal strike. The sunlight hit them like a salvation. He stumbled into the open grass with both girls still held tight, lungs burning. Heart roaring. Teachers ran to help. He handed the girls off and doubled over, coughing hard. When he stood again, the black SUV was there. Watching. That night, Marcus made the call. To his old commanding officer. To someone who owed him favors. To someone who understood the rules and when they needed to be broken. "You sure about this?" Voice asked. "I've had guns in my face before," Marcus said, "but never pointed at my child." "I'm sure." A pause, then a sigh. "I'll make the call." Scene 5. The reckoning begins. The next morning wasn't quiet. It looked quiet. Suburban calm, lawns watered, birds chirping, but something different stirred in the air. Marcus stood in his driveway, wearing a dark blue jacket and boots. Kayla beside him, Amara still asleep inside. A line of black SUVs pulled up. Not the ones that stalked him, and someone the world would have to reckon with later. As they sat quietly, eating their pancakes in silence, the waitress returned one last time. She stood awkwardly, eyes red, holding a piece of pie in a paper box. I was scared, she said. Not of you, just of the others, of saying the wrong thing. But I was wrong. You didn't deserve that, any of it. Marcus looked at her, then at Kayla, then at his daughter. You still have a choice, he said gently. Use it right next time. She nodded, left the pie, and walked away a different person than she'd been 20 minutes earlier. The video was 27 seconds long, shaky, grainy, filmed from across the diner behind a glass of orange juice. But it captured everything. The fear in Amara's eyes, the tremble in Kayla's voice, the calm steel in Marcus's posture as he faced down to cops with weapons on their hips, ignorance in their eyes. Someone uploaded it that same afternoon. By nightfall, it had 5 million views. By sunrise, Marcus Taylor had become the man everyone had an opinion about, without anyone asking him what it felt like. They got home. 8. No music on the radio. No talking. Just silence. Amara went straight to her room. No TV. No phone. Kayla stood in the kitchen staring into the sink like it might explain the world to her. Marcus sat at the edge of the bed, holding the Navy ID the cops hadn't even looked at. The weight of it felt heavier than usual. His phone. Unknown number. No caller ID. He didn't answer. A moment later, it buzzed again, this time a text. We're watching you. Don't make this bigger than it has to be. He stared at it, unblinking, then turned the phone off and put it in a drawer. He'd seen threats before. On the battlefield. They came with bullets. Here, they wore badges. The next morning, Amara didn't want to go to school. I'm not ready, she whispered. Going to look at me like I made it all up. Kayla brushed her daughter's hair back gently. You didn't. And you're not alone. Amara looked up. But they'll say I was rude, that I made it worse, that I should have just stayed quiet. Marcus entered the room then, kneeling beside her. You know what they'll never say? He asked softly. Amara shook her head. That I broke when it mattered. That I ran. That I let them make me smaller. She blinked. Because that was the part of her that was fighting now, the small voice inside trying to shrink again, trying to forget. But he wouldn't let her. I'll walk you in, he said, and I'll be right outside when you come out. She finally nodded. At school. It took less than an hour for the whispers to start. She's that girl from the video. Her dad's the one who flipped out on the cops. No. I heard her mom screamed and made a scene. Amara walked with her shoulders tight, trying to disappear inside her own skin. In the hallway near her locker, a boy bumped into her on purpose. Boops. Didn't see you there. TikTok famous. Group of kids laughed. And just like that, the bravery she'd built up cracked a little. But she didn't cry. She remembered what her dad had said. You didn't break. So neither would she. Meanwhile, Kayla had to leave work early. Her boss, a middle-aged woman who once said I don't see color, pulled her into the back office. This whole thing's gotten complicated. Kayla frowned. You mean my family being harassed? The woman squirmed. I just think, maybe take a few days. Let it die down. Let people cool off. Kayla looked at her, flat and calm. I thought we were friends. The Ross didn't answer, just turned away and pretended to check a file that didn't need checking. Kayla walked out without saying goodbye, and Marcus tried to keep quiet. He tried to let it blow over. But then the doorbell rang. A reporter stood on the porch, then another, then a third, each one with a mic, a cameraman, and that same tone. "We just want your side of the story." But they didn't. They wanted a soundbite, a headline, chance to make a man bleed publicly and call it journalism. Marcus declined every interview until one reporter, a black woman from the city, waited outside the VA building he visited once a week. No mic, no camera, just a coffee in hand. "I saw the video," she said, "and I saw you, the part they're all skipping over." He raised an eyebrow. "You stood in front of your daughter, and they still saw you as a threat." That was the first conversation he didn't walk away from. 2 nights later, the video went viral again, this time reposted by a civil rights page. Suddenly, Marcus was a symbol, a talking point, a hashtag. But the messages got uglier. "You made your daughter a target. This could have ended peacefully if you just obeyed. You're kind always looking for a payout." Marcus didn't answer any of them, but in the darkness of their bedroom, long after Amara had gone to sleep, he turned to Kayla. "I've done tours in 6 countries, he whispered. "I've rescued hostages, cleared villages, fought with blood in my eyes." She nodded, tears on her cheek. "But nothing prepared me for watching our baby girl question if her existence was a threat." Kayla took his hand. "You don't have to fight this alone." But he already knew he would, because the real war had just begun. Marcus didn't want to go on camera. He didn't trust the spotlight, never had. Not when he was overseas, and not now, back home. But after days of online speculation, a school full of whispers for Amara, and a growing fear in Kayla's eyes every time the phone rang, Marcus realized something. Silence wasn't safety. It was surrender. So he picked one interview. One station. One journalist, the woman who waited outside the VA. No tricks, no makeup, just 2 chairs in a quiet community center. She hit record and asked only one question. What happened that morning? At the diner, Marcus didn't raise his voice. Asterisk didn't. Main call. Didn't dramatize. He just told the truth from the second he walked in with his family. The moment his daughter asked, "Did I do something wrong?" and when he finished, the room was still. But the internet wasn't. The clip went viral again. But this time, the world took sides. One half called him a hero, a man who protected his family with quiet dignity. The other half called him dangerous, labeled him ungrateful, accused him of making good cops look bad. And came the statement from the local police department. Cold, sanitized, scripted. Our officers responded to a call regarding a disturbance. No use of force occurred. All protocols were followed. We support our officers' decision-making. Under pressure, Marcus read it 3 times. Not once did they mention Amara. Not once did they mention the truth. But they weren't done. That same evening, the department posted a blurry still image of a body cam screenshot. Amara, mid-sentence, mouth open, eyes wide, captioned, "Uncooperative behavior." Kayla saw it first. "Are they serious?" she gasped, nearly dropping her phone. Marcus's jaw clenched. "They're painting her as the problem." A reporter reached out, anonymous, source, and said the full body cam footage had been flagged as corrupted. Corrupted? No audio. No stable video. They're saying it glitched. Marcus knew better. He'd seen corrupted footage used before in war zones. It was never about data. It was always about control. Days passed. The tension grew. Kayla was called into her boss's office again. This time, the tone was colder. "We're getting calls," the woman said, voice like ice. "You're becoming a distraction." Kayla blinked. "A distraction? My clients are uncomfortable. The news coverage, your husband's story, they feel you're bringing attention to wrong kind of politics." Kayla stared. She wanted to scream, but instead she stood and whispered, "If my daughter were white, this wouldn't be a distraction. It would be a movement." Then she walked out. No job, but her spine intact. That night, Marcus sat at the dining table, papers spread across it, his discharge documents, VA files, character references, media reports. Amara came in holding a piece of paper. Her hands were shaking. "What's this?" he asked. She placed it in front of him. Note, crumpled, scrawled in red ink. "Go back to where you came from before we send you in a box." She found it in her locker. Marcus didn't blink, didn't yell. He folded the paper in half and stood up. "I know I have to work twice as hard to be seen as smart, and smile twice as much to be seen as nice, and walk twice as carefully to be seen as safe." She looked them dead in the eye. "I just want to be a kid." Her voice cracked. Then she stepped down, and no one in the room had anything left to say. That night, Marcus found Kayla in the backyard, sitting on the old bench swing. The cicadas buzzed. She didn't speak, just leaned against him as he sat beside her. "Do you think she'll be okay?" Kayla asked softly. Marcus didn't answer right away. "She already is," he said finally. "She's stronger than both of us combined." Kayla chuckled. "Yeah, I wanted her to be strong for college, not for survival." He nodded, then pulled out something from his back pocket, an old photo, frayed at the corners, his SEAL team, smiling in a dusty compound, arms slung over each other, one hand flashing a peace sign. "She's gonna have her own team one day," he whispered. "People who get it, people who fight beside her. And until then," he looked over at her, "she's got us." They sat in silence, the stars spinning above, the earth holding still for once. 2 days later, Marcus got a call. Unknown number. He answered anyway. "Mr. Johnson, this is Commander Eliza Grant, Pentagon Public Affairs. I'd like to formally invite you to speak at our Leadership and Ethics Forum next month." Marcus was confused. "I'm not active duty." "We know. But your story, your restraint, your clarity, your ability to de-escalate, it's been taught in 3 officer training classes this week. We believe your experience is exactly the kind of perspective future commanders need." He was silent for a long beat. "Will there be young officers there?" "Yes, then I'm in." Friday, they sat down for dinner. No tension. No heavy silence. Just food. Laughter. A goofy story from Amara about a school lunch tray catastrophe. Marcus reached for the mashed potatoes. "You'll remember when I was the serious one in this house." Kayla raised an eyebrow. "You think you're not now?" He grinned. "I've softened. I've evolved," she said, kissing his cheek. Amara wrinkled her nose. "EWW, not at the table." The room echoed with laughter. The storm had passed, but the strength it left behind, that would last. The courtroom was full, but no one spoke. Kind of silence that fills a space before something irreversible happens. The kind of silence that seems to press against your ribs and demand you sit still. All eyes were on the man seated quietly near the front. Marcus Taylor. He was composed in a navy blue suit, hands folded in his lap. But there was something simmering behind his eyes. His wife Kendra sat beside him, her fingers anxiously tracing the edge of her wedding ring, and next to her, Amara, 15, small, still trying to disappear into her seat. But she was here. She hadn't flinched, not since the moment she watched her father nearly get killed over breakfast. Across the room, Officer Travis Daniels sat with a blank face. His badge had been suspended, pending trial, but it still sat heavy in his mind. Weight of authority lingered even when the badge was gone. "All rise," the bailiff said, and a judge entered. Everyone stood, then sat, and just like that, the final day of testimony began. The district attorney stepped forward slowly, not rushing, not lecturing. Her voice carried not just through the courtroom, but through the tension itself. She spoke calmly, clearly, letting each word land like a slow, deliberate knock. "This isn't just about a bad call or a mistaken identity," she said. "This is about a trained officer walking into a breakfast diner, seeing a black man, eating pancakes with his daughter, and deciding that was a threat." The screen lit up behind her. Grainy black and white footage from the security camera. There was Marcus laughing, wiping syrup off Amara's chin. Harmless, warm. Then the door opened. Officer Daniels burst through, weapon drawn. The image froze. Gun pointed at Marcus's head. A 15-year-old girl frozen in terror. This man, the DA continued, pointing toward the screen, served 15 years in the Navy, multiple deployments, top honors. He protected our country, but somehow that wasn't enough for him to be seen as a human being in a diner. The courtroom stayed quiet. No objections, just the rising hum of reality settling in. Outside, hundreds had gathered. Signs reading "Protect Black Families. Dignity is not a threat, and we are not invisible" bobbed above the crowd. Word had spread. People were watching. People were waiting. Inside, it was Marcus's turn. He walked to the stand. No papers, no speeches, just him. "I've fought in places where you had to check every step for landmines," he said, "where the wrong word in the wrong village could get you killed. But I've never feared for my life more than I did that morning, looking into the barrel of a gun while my daughter watched." He paused. His voice never shook. "I knew I couldn't move. I knew I couldn't even blink the wrong way. Because if I did, she'd be telling this story at my funeral." Kendra's hand went to her mouth. Amara didn't cry. She stared at him, wide-eyed, absorbing every word like it was stitched into her. "Being a soldier taught me to control my breathing under pressure. That training is what saved me. But it shouldn't take military conditioning to survive breakfast in America." He stepped down. For a moment, the entire courtroom just breathed. Outside, journalists scribbled. Camera shutters clicked. Later, during recess, Marcus stepped into the hallway to clear his mind. Ronnie, the diner owner, older, white, a Marine veteran who walked with a limp, approached him. "I froze that morning," Ronnie said. "I saw them coming. I knew something was off, but I didn't say anything. I let it happen." Marcus put a hand on his shoulder. "You're saying something now." Ronnie nodded, eyes misting. When court resumed, the jury filed back in. The judge asked if they had reached a verdict. They had. The courtroom braced. The jury forewoman stood and read. On the charge of assault with a deadly weapon, we find the defendant, Officer Travis Daniels, guilty. A sharp inhale passed through the room. Daniels showed no reaction, just a tight jaw, a twitch in his hand. Marcus didn't move. Kendra let out a breath she didn't realize she was holding, and Amara's eyes filled just one tear, sliding down her cheek. She didn't wipe it away. The gavel came down. Later, outside the courthouse, microphones swarmed Marcus. Reporter shoved one toward him. What do you say to other black fathers who feel like this could happen to them? He looked up. The cameras reflected in his dark eyes. He didn't flinch. We're not invisible. He said, they just tend not to see us. In the weeks that followed, the city changed Dot at Amherst School. She stood before her class during Black History Month and read her own words. My father taught me that dignity isn't something you earn. It's something you already have. And when people try to take it away, you don't scream, you stand. Some students clapped. Others cried. A few teachers had to leave the room. In the police department, Officer Daniel's photo was taken down from the wall. A new sign went up, zero tolerance policy for racial profiling, effective immediately. Beneath it, someone taped a small yellow sticky note. It read, remember the Taylors. At the diner, Ronnie brought out French toast on the house. The Taylors, when they finally came back, people nodded at them now. A soft ripple of respect had replaced the silence. I told you it was the best in town, Ronnie said, grinning. Amara smirked. Still mid-tier, laughter. Not because everything was healed, but because laughter had returned. At home, Marcus kept a folder on his desk. Hundreds of letters from across the country. Some from strangers. Some from veterans. Some from teenagers. Who said they finally felt seen. One simply said, you saved more than your daughter that day. You saved us. That night, he walked out into the backyard. The stars were out. The sky was quiet. Kendra joined him, wrapped in a blanket. You think it's over? She asked. He looked up. No, he said, but they know our name now.